Good morning. It's Market Day Report. We're so glad you're with us for another trading day. Look who we've got in the studio with us, Chris Swift, Swift Trading. Chris, as we start to get into the markets here, there is something that's happening on the livestock side that could affect the markets there. And I'm talking about a new case of well, now,
the world's cruel.
Thank you. Thank you. For some reason, all I could think of was fever tick there, and it's not the fever tick. But this is a detection that's been found in Mexico again. How big of a deal are these detections? And again, coming up with new ones nearly every week.
It's of no surprise to the market now. It's almost like the army is coming. We know it's coming. It's going to eventually be here. I don't know of any way to eradicate it other than some kind of really deep freeze, which isn't going to happen that far south. So what I'd like to know is what the plan is for when it gets here. What are we going to do once it actually gets here? And go ahead and just take that step down, kind of let us know. Well, it's almost an obvious factor that it's going to take place. So why not be prepared for it?
Good point there. Speaking of that, it obviously will affect the cattle markets, but let's first start over on the corn market, and we'll work our way back around. And I guess the good segue here is we feed corn to livestock,
Absolutely.
Right? Okay. Still a half penny higher on that December contract at 422 and a quarter. The deferreds are all in the red. What about the beans? Bean trade here is 4.5 higher on the November as we trade this market at 1022 and a quarter. Let's touch on soy meal for a moment. Soy meal contracts have been down 2 straight sessions. Losses year to date, 13%. We are higher across the board. And then we have bean oil contracts, which are moving higher with 50 on everything, but 51s on the 2026 contracts, starting with January out at 51.01. Let's go to the wheat market. Chicago, old crop, 511. That is a penny 3/4 lower. Hard red. Instead of the old crop, let's look at new crop, July. And in part because, Chris, we do see some grazing on wheat, right?
Sure, absolutely.
And 545 and a quarter is where we trade that one, a penny and a half lower. And what's interesting as we look at spring wheat here is that hard red winter wheat where we have cattle out on it actually have an option just to continue to graze that all the way through or whether to go to harvest with it. And those decisions don't have to be made till really in January at some point. So again, you see a big rally in the wheat market. You could see a pullback in getting those cattle off of the wheat. But the other side of that is, how many cattle do we have out there, right?
Not very many right now.
Okay, we look at live cattle now before we get back over to Chris. December, 45 higher, 237.12. Feeders here at the morning session, 361 and a quarter. That's 45 higher, and one more here for National Pork Month. December, buck 20 lower on the hogs, 86.07. So let's full circle back around to the cattle market here. What are you watching?
Basis more than anything, because basis tells us where we can buy the cattle the cheapest and where we can sell them for the most. And what we have noticed more so in the futures market, we're carrying a positive basis, especially in the feeder cattle market, where we have the futures market considerably higher than what the cash market higher than what the futures market is. So we look at that and we go, well, that makes it a little bit less enticing to want to sell cattle out into the spring of the year where they're cheaper. But for the cattle feeder, it's very enticing because that's where the cheapest cattle are in the spring. Then we flip over to the fat cattle market. Now we're in a negative basis in December, February, and the April contracts where you're trading a higher price in the futures market than you are the cash. And that gives you all kinds of options to be able to hedge that market or market out into the future at prices that you decide whether or not that happens to be the high, the low, or whatever, but you're making those decisions based upon what you feel your marketing decision is.
Okay, Chris, I got to hear Dr. Darrell Peel, Oklahoma State livestock economist. Darrell joins us a couple of times each week, but he had some comments based upon a recent trip to the Texas Panhandle and feedlots and just some general concerns there about feedlots with the lack of feeder cattle,
Absolutely.
especially with the Mexican border closed. Do we need to keep this on the radar?
Oh, well, it's actually already on the radar, and some things are taking place. We have heard rumors of there being some of that capacity, feeding capacity, being closed down, whether it's actually mothballed or whether it's rolled into another yard somewhere 30, 40, 50 miles down the road and kind of consolidate all that, but it's already happening. Feed yards are very similar to a hotel. The less occupancy you have into it, the less money you're going to be making, and you have to either start laying people off or you have to start doing something to entice people to come back in. And with no inventory out there, it's very difficult to entice anything in, especially in the South here, where we feed tremendous amounts of those cattle.
And so, with these high prices, is it safe to assume that the downside of these high prices is we see consolidation, which is something we're not necessarily wanting to see?
Tremendous amount. And what I think, this is just my opinion alone, but I think that the cow-calf producer has been enticed to hold that cow, to sell that heifer, hold the cow back, and then continue with that. And that's they're going to keep the bird in the hand. They're going to sell that bird in the hand instead of waiting for the two in the bush. And so a lot of people have said drought has been an issue and let farmers sell their cattle off. And I just don't believe that. I think it was the $6 trillion that we threw out there into the economy and allowed everybody an opportunity to eat better than they ever had before. And that enticed the cow-calf operator to just keep selling that product until we find ourselves where we are.
Great insight. I'm so glad you're here. Chris Swift is with Swift Trading. He joins us every Tuesday. Okay, we'll take a break, be back with more Market Day Report.